She scratched the CEO's luxury car. Her next move left him speechless. CEO, Stories for Sleep. Before we dive in, I want to know, where in the world are you watching from tonight? Type your city in the comments so we can see just how far this story travels. And when we reach the end, I dare you to rate it from 0 to 10, because this one just might break your heart. Now, settle in and enjoy the story. It was midday in New York. Fifth Avenue shimmered like a river of steel and glass. Sleek cars lined the curbs, their polished surfaces catching the pale winter sun. The air was sharp with car horns and hurried footsteps, a symphony of the city that never slowed. And then, like a crack across the perfect rhythm, came the sound, a screech, high and sharp, tearing through the air. Harper Lane froze. Her old bicycle wobbled to a stop. Her breath caught when she realized what had happened. The pedal of her battered bike had scraped across the flawless door of an Aston Martin, a car worth more than a lifetime of her wages. Her heart thundered like a war drum. A cold sweat broke across her temples. In that instant, it felt like she stood on the thin line between ruin and despair. But Harper was never one to simply crumble. No. What she did next was something no one could have predicted. With trembling fingers, she reached into the pocket of her worn hoodie and pulled out a tiny bottle of olive green nail polish. Kneeling in the glare of the afternoon sun, she leaned down, and right there, on the shimmering paint of the billionaire's car, she began to brush it carefully over the scar. It was absurd, reckless, almost an insult to the gleaming world of CEOs and supercars. And yet, in that moment, under the watchful, icy stare of a man whose power stretched across skyscrapers, a story began. One neither of them could have imagined. A love story born from a single scratch. Tell me, do you believe a small mistake could ever open the door to something greater? Winter in New York draped the city in a dull gray, the sky heavy with the weight of clouds. In a shoebox apartment in Brooklyn, Harper Lane, 27, juggling food deliveries, coffee shop shifts, and the occasional freelance illustration, was starting another hurried day. Her life was a patchwork of struggle, overdue rent flashing red on her phone, credit card bills piling higher, and that old bicycle. Her only true possession was her fragile lifeline. Meanwhile, only a few blocks away, Fifth Avenue sparkled with wealth. Rolls-Royces and Aston Martins glided like quiet declarations of power. Two worlds running parallel, never meant to collide until fate decided otherwise. Balancing her phone in one hand to check an address, Harper barely noticed the angle of her bike until it was too late. The pedal scraped hard against the parked car. The sound ripped through her bones. Her chest tightened. Her fingers shook. The numbers in her head grew monstrous. One scratch could cost her a year of rent. But Harper, even in fear, carried a streak of defiance. In panic, she did the unthinkable, a ridiculous idea, a desperate instinct, one that would change everything. If it had been you, standing there, heart racing, hands trembling, what would you have done? Run away or face the storm head on? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, because this story will make you hold your breath and then maybe smile. Part 1. The Fateful Scratch. Late noon in New York. Fifth Avenue glittered beneath golden sunlight. Glass towers reflecting a brilliance that made the whole avenue shimmer. The crowd surged like a restless tide, car horns clashing with hurried footsteps, creating a noisy symphony. Harper Lane had long grown used to the rhythm of her everyday survival. She pedaled along on her battered delivery bike, the little bell jingling like a weary breath. On her back, a bulging backpack strained at the seams, heavy with steaming boxes of food that smelled delicious but weighed down like stone. Her sneakers were frayed, the laces worn thin and threatening to snap at any moment, making each push on the pedals more rushed, more desperate. Was it 24B or 24D? Oh, no, I forgot, she muttered, eyes fixed on the glowing map on her phone. One hand gripped the handlebar, while the other scrolled nervously through the address. And then fate struck. She lifted her head just in time for a flash of blinding light to sting her eyes, the gleam of olive green paint, polished to a mirror shine. An Aston Martin. It stood at the curb, like a creature born of wealth, daring anyone to even breathe too close. Harper never had the chance to swerve. Screech. The pedal of her bike scraped across the flawless car door, leaving behind a pale white scar, long and merciless, carved into perfection. Her brakes screeched as she stumbled to a stop. The bike tilted dangerously before she caught it with one shaky foot on the pavement. Her heart pounded wild, sweat running down the back of her neck. Though the day wasn't hot at all. Oh no, what have I just done? Her throat tightened as she stared at the scar gleaming under the sun. It was so visible, so sharp. She didn't need to bend down. It screamed at her like a glaring wound. For a moment, the roar of the city fell away. All she could hear was the furious beating of her heart and the storm of dreadful images flashing across her mind. A whole year's rent gone in an instant. A repair bill longer than a roll of receipt paper. Nights surviving on raw instant noodles. No, no, no. I'm ruined, she whispered, lips trembling. Her hand reached out instinctively, as if she could rub the scratch away with her palm. but she snatched it back just as quickly. That glossy paintwork, as smooth as glass, would never forgive such a foolish attempt. She swallowed hard, eyes darting around like a guilty thief. Please, let no one have seen. But Fifth Avenue never lacked eyes. A well-dressed couple slowed, their gaze slipping over her, then settling on the scar. The woman murmured, aghast, "Oh my God, an Aston Martin," scratched. Each word struck Harper like the slice of a knife. She bowed her head, her chest tightening, and for a terrifying second, she thought she might cry right there on the street. What do I do now? The question echoed in her skull. Before she could even think, the cafe door beside her swung open. Out stepped a tall figure, the cut of a gray suit, catching the sunlight, making time itself pause for breath. He adjusted a dark blue tie, each step calm, but every tap of polished leather shoes against the pavement sounded like the drumbeat of fate. Alexander Reed, a name spoken in business papers and fashion magazines alike with reverence, the youngest CEO in the supercar industry, the man behind Reed Motors, a chain of luxury showrooms spread across Manhattan like temples of power, his eyes cold steel gray, sharp as a blade, kept people at a distance with no effort at all. And now, those very eyes were fixed on Harper. Her body stiffened, a lump in her throat. She stepped back half a pace, clutching the straps of her backpack as though it were her last shield. Alexander's gaze flicked from the scar on his car back to her pale, stricken face. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. His silence weighed heavier than anger. When his voice finally came, it was deep, deliberate, unyielding. Do you have any idea how much this car is worth? Harper opened her mouth, but her voice tangled in fear. At last, a stammer. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Alexander folded his arms, tilting his head slightly. His words were calm, but they cut like ice. Sorry won't erase the scratch. It felt like a verdict, a sentence. Heat flooded Harper's face as numbers swirled in her mind, hundreds of thousands of dollars, debts that would crush her flat. All I have is just enough for this month's rent. I'll have to live on noodles. Maybe even sell my only laptop. The thoughts spun until tears pricked her eyes. A cold gust swept down the avenue, tossing her bangs across her face. She pushed them back, struggling to hold on to any shred of composure. Her lips trembled, but then, like a reflex of panic and foolish courage, she blurted, What if I told you I had a way to fix it?" His brows arched. For a heartbeat, all of Fifth Avenue seemed to hold its breath, watching the poor girl quiver before the billionaire. His eyes, once flat with disdain, sparked with the faintest flicker of curiosity. Your way of fixing it. Harper drew in a shaky breath and dug into the pocket of her hoodie. From it, she pulled something so small, so absurd, that anyone watching might have thought she'd lost her mind. A tiny bottle of olive green nail polish. Her hands trembled as she twisted the cap, the brush rattling against the glass. She knew every eye was on her, the elegant couple across the street, the barista peeking from the cafe window, and yet, in that surge of terror, her brain offered up nothing but this reckless, ridiculous idea. She lifted her chin, pale lips curving in the barest hint of defiance. "Don't worry. I've got this." Alexander's eyes narrowed, his arms still folded. "And just what do you think you're doing?" Harper didn't answer. She crouched, dipped the brush, and carefully dabbed it over the bright scar. The sharp scent of polish drifted into the cold air, mingling with the smell of exhaust and city smoke. Her pulse roared in her ears. "God, Harper, what on earth are you doing?" A glistening drop of green spread across the white streak. Catching the light, Harper leaned in, blowing gently, strands of hair falling loose as she smoothed it out. "See," she whispered, with a shaky, almost desperate smile. "Good as new. No one will even notice if you don't tell them." Silence. The avenue, the crowd, the city all seemed to wait for his judgment. Alexander stared at the gleaming, uneven patch. It wasn't flawless. In fact, it stood out even more than the scratch. But then his mouth twitched. A low chuckle broke free, short, deep, almost as if it surprised him as much as her, but it rang like a crack in the ice. Harper blinked, stunned. People said this man never laughed, and yet here it was, rough and real. Her heart skipped, not from fear this time, but something else. He shook his head, voice carrying a strange mix of reproach and reluctant amusement. "This is the first time I've ever seen someone repair a supercar with nail polish." Relief burst out of Harper in a shaky laugh. Her shoulders dropped, and she added quickly, with a forced cheer, "Exclusive service. Free of charge. Think of it as saving a few $1,000s on repainting." His eyes lingered on her again, no longer pure steel, but tinged with curiosity and something almost like intrigue. In that instant, she felt it. She turned a death sentence into something else. An opportunity she couldn't yet name, but the moment vanished as quickly as it came. His face cooled, his tone dropped back to business. "Your name." She froze. "What?" "Name, address, phone number." Each word struck like a hammer. Harper's stomach knotted. "Of course. He'll send the bill. I'm finished." Her lips shook as she whispered, "But I don't have money. I really don't." He didn't soften. His voice was firm, immovable. I didn't ask if you had money. I said, leave your information. We'll discuss the rest later. Her legs felt like stone. Images of her cramped apartment filled her mind. Mountains of instant noodles, stacks of debt, even pawning her favorite paintbrush. Still trembling, she fumbled out a worn notebook and a dull pencil. Her handwriting was uneven, but legible. Harper Lane, 917 X. Harper Lane, Artimail. She paused, biting her lip, and then, on impulse, added one more line. I can draw. If you'd like, I could gift you a portrait. Consider it a little piece of compensation. Tearing out the page, she handed it to him with both hands, forcing a crooked smile. Here, let's call it creative restitution. Who knows? Someday, it might be worth more than the repair bill. Alexander scanned the note. His eyes rested on the final line. For once, there was no anger, no mockery, just silence. His brow arched faintly, as though she had managed to surprise him. He folded the paper, tucked it into his suit pocket, and reached for his wallet. From it, he produced a sleek black business card, matte and sharp, pressing it into her palm. Alexander Reed, CEO, Reed Motors. Harper stared, stunned. CEO, she had just scratched the car of a billionaire. The winter wind gusted along the avenue, and Harper shivered. Not just from the cold, but from the weight of what had just happened. Deep down, she knew this accident was only the beginning. That night, her little Brooklyn apartment glowed with the yellow warmth of an old desk lamp. Paintbrushes, sketchbooks, and scattered bottles of paint crowded the shaky wooden table. The chaos of a life both messy and alive. Harper sat curled in her hoodie, staring at the matte black business card laid neatly before her. Alexander Reed, CEO, Reed Motors. The silver letters gleamed beneath the light, taunting her. She propped her chin in her hand, eyes wide, as though staring hard enough could conjure a way out of debt. I just scratched a CEO's car, a billionaire's car. The thought pressed down on her chest. She imagined a repair bill as long as the subway map. Yes, I'll die of debt before I die of hunger. She turned the card over and over in her fingers. So cold, so perfect, so far from her world of bright sketches and goofy caricatures. With a sigh, she placed it beside her peeling laptop. A fairy tale, she muttered, but in reverse. The princess doesn't meet the prince. She scratches his prized horse instead, trying to shake off the weight. Harper booted up her drawing tablet. The pen sketched across the screen. Not a masterpiece this time, but a cartoon. A messy-haired girl in a hoodie, clutching a tiny nail polish bottle, dabbing away at a car 10 times her size. Above it, in jagged handwriting, Exclusive emergency service. Nail polish repairs. Harper chuckled softly, the sound fragile in the quiet room, but her laughter couldn't quite mask the heaviness inside. Ping! The sound of an incoming email jolted her. She spun to the screen. The sender's name froze her heart. Alexander Reed. No, already. She clicked. One single line appeared, cold, sharp, like a command. Tomorrow. Days M. Reed Motors Showroom. I have work for you. No greeting, no signature. Just an order from a glass tower. Harper leaned back in her chair, burying her face in her hands. Oh God, not a bill. But work! What kind of work? Washing windows, scrubbing the entire showroom floor with a toothbrush. Her eyes drifted back to the black card on her desk. In the lamplight, it glowed like a doorway to a world she had never dared to enter, a world of wealth, pressure, and danger for someone with a heart as fragile as hers. She exhaled, a tired but oddly excited smile tugging at her lips. Well, why not? I've got nothing left to lose. Let's see just how much this cold CEO can surprise me. Outside, Brooklyn hummed with its endless noise, but inside her tiny room, Harper's heart beat in wild, uncertain rhythm, and she had no idea that tomorrow morning, the moment she stepped into Reed Motors, her life would take a turn from which there was no return. Part 2. Nail Polish Rescue. In front of the cafe, Alexander Reed stepped out with the kind of presence that made Fifth Avenue feel like it belonged to him. His gray suit fit broad shoulders perfectly, the dark blue tie catching the afternoon sun, and each steady stride carried the weight of unspoken power. Harper stood frozen beside the scratched Aston Martin, clutching a tiny bottle of olive green nail polish. Alexander's eyes dropped to the long, glaring mark on the car's flawless body, then slowly lifted, locking on her. In that instant, Harper felt as if a cold-faced judge had just delivered her death sentence. Do you know how much this is worth? His voice was low, steady, needing no anger to send ice straight down her spine. Harper swallowed hard. Her body trembled, but inside that trembling, a streak of recklessness flickered to life. She lifted the bottle as though it were her only weapon. I have a way to fix it. Pedestrians slowed on the sidewalk, curiosity pulling at their steps. The air grew heavy, as if the whole street had paused to watch the show about to unfold. Alexander's brows knit, his gaze cold but edged with curiosity. Your solution. Harper crouched, twisting the cap until it clicked open. The sharp scent of polish drifted out. Her heart pounded, but her hand moved, on instinct dipping the brush, dabbing it onto the scar, then blowing gently across the wet shine. See, she whispered, forcing a shaky smile that hovered between fear and mischief. Almost good as new. If you don't say anything, no one will notice. Silence fell. The glossy olive paint stood out even worse against the deep green finish. Ridiculous and bold, Harper bit her lip, her chest so tight she thought she'd faint. Then the corner of Alexander's mouth twitched. For the briefest moment, his steely gray eyes lit with something unexpected. A short, deep laugh broke free, so sudden, Harper's heart lurched. "This is the first time," he murmured, "I've ever seen someone repair a supercar with nail polish." Relief crashed through her like a wave. She nearly collapsed onto the pavement. Quick as instinct, she added, half joking, half pleading, "Exclusive service, free of charge. You just saved thousands on repainting." His gaze lingered, no longer pure ice, but touched with something harder to name interest. Amusement, a flicker of warmth. On elegant Fifth Avenue, among designer suits and gleaming cars, a poor girl in a ragged hoodie had made a billionaire CEO laugh, and Harper knew that moment would haunt her. For a long, long time, she thought she was free. The scratch covered, the CEO amused. Maybe, just maybe, he'd let her go. She tightened her backpack straps, ready to wheel her bike away and vanish into the crowd. But his voice, low and commanding, stopped her cold. "Wait!" Her whole body locked, hair prickling at the back of her neck. Slowly, she turned. Alexander stood with arms folded, posture straight, eyes like winter seas. "Your name, address, phone number." Her eyes went wide, her heart exploding like fireworks. What? "You scratched my car. I don't need clumsy apologies. I need your information so I can send the invoice." The word invoice landed like a death sentence. Her head swam. Numbers flooded in thousands, tens of thousands, more than her life could ever afford. "But I don't have money. I really don't." Her voice broke, panic clear in her eyes. Alexander's brow rose, his voice flat as steel. "So what then? You'll run." Her teeth dug into her lip. Half of her wanted to drop the bike and disappear into the crowd, but the other half whispered that Alexander Reed was not a man you escaped. With a few hurried steps, with trembling fingers, she pulled a small notebook from her hoodie pocket, scratching out shaky lines with a dull pencil. "Harper Lane, 907. Harper Lane, Artemail." The pencil hovered. She hesitated. Then, with a reckless surge of courage, added one more line. "I can draw. If you'd like, I could gift you a portrait. Call it emotional compensation." She tore the page, held it out with both hands. eyes wide with fear, and a touch of forced humor. Here, maybe it's not enough, but who knows? One day, it might be worth more than the repair. Alexander glanced down. His stern expression flickered just for a second. Not anger, not disdain, something else. Curiosity, maybe even a faint warmth. He folded the note, tucked it into his suit pocket, and drew a card from his wallet. Black, matte, silver lettering gleaming coldly. Alexander Reed, CEO, Reed Motors. Harper took it, her breath catching. Not just wealthy, a billionaire, a man she'd just patched with nail polish. Fifth Avenue seemed larger, colder than ever, and she knew she had just stumbled into a world she had never belonged to. That night, Brooklyn's cracked walls glowed under the sickly yellow of street lamps. In her cramped apartment, Harper slumped into a creaking chair, sneakers still on, hoodie still hugging her shoulders. On the cluttered desk, half-finished sketches, open noodle cups lay the foreign, unnerving object, the matte black card, a door to another world, a world of gleaming cars and fortunes stitched into fabric. Harper rested her chin in her hand, fingers tracing the silver letters. Alexander Reed, CEO, Reed Motors. Just reading it sent a shiver through her. His image burned in her mind. Tall, sharp, voice quiet yet commanding, and that single laugh so brief, so impossible, echoed like a melody she might never hear again. I scratched a billionaire's cars, she whispered, a man who could buy my whole neighborhood with a single glance. She dropped her head onto the desk, half moaning, half laughing at her own ruin. She snapped open her laptop. On the screen, a doodle she'd left unfinished. A girl in a hoodie, holding up a tiny nail polish bottle, painting away at a car 10 times her size. Below it, she scribbled, "Emergency repair service. 5 minutes. No insurance required." Harper chuckled, soft and tired. The sound faded quickly into the stillness. Ping. The email notification jolted her upright. She clicked. The sender froze her pulse. Alexander Reed. Her heart stopped, then raced double time. She clicked open. A single line. No greeting, no signature, no wasted word. And tomorrow, Reed Motors showroom. I have work for you. Harper stared at the screen, mouthing the words, "Work for me." She read it again and again, shaking her head. Dropping back in her chair, she groaned aloud. What does that mean? Not a bill but work. Wash windows, polish wheels, or worse, testify in court for the nail polish crime of the century. She sighed, covering her face, yet deep inside, beneath the fear, a spark of anticipation flared. This wasn't a simple errand. It felt like the start of something else, something binding, inescapable. Her eyes drifted to the card again, silver letters glinting like his gaze, and she whispered, uneasy, but almost excited, "All right, Mr. CEO, let's see who surprises who." Outside, Brooklyn clattered with life, but in Harper's small room, her heart raced with the tremor of a beginning. The next morning, the New York sky was gray, snowflakes drifting over neon signs and glittering billboards. Harper pulled on her familiar yellow hoodie, layered under a heavy jacket, backpack weighed with deliveries and nerves. Her pulse beat harder than the climb over the bridge. When she arrived, she looked up at the towering glass structure before her. Reed Motors showroom. It gleamed like a cathedral for the wealthy, its sharp lines reflecting the whole city in its mirrored surface. Harper swallowed, whispering, "God." I'm about to walk into a church for the rich. Inside, the space stunned her. White marble floors gleamed like glass. Spotlights fell on rows of cars displayed like masterpieces. A blazing yellow Lamborghini, a fiery red Ferrari, and a line of Aston Martins standing proud like kings. It felt less like a showroom, more like an art gallery. Just not for her kind of people. "Miss Lane," a woman's voice chimed. Harper turned to see a receptionist in a black suit. Smile, professional, eyes curious. Harper nodded quickly, voice shaking. "Yes, I have an appointment." The woman lifted a phone. "Mr. Reed, Miss Harper Lane has arrived." Less than a minute later, Alexander appeared at the end of the corridor. Same gray suit, same blue tie, his steps slow, assured, commanding the air around him. His face was carved from stone, eyes fixed only on Harper. The whole showroom seemed to stiffen under his presence. Harper clutched her backpack straps, whispering inside her head, "Stay calm. Harper, he's just a CEO, a billionaire CEO who could bill you for the rest of your life." Alexander stopped before her, offering no greeting. He tipped his chin slightly, voice short, like an order. "Follow me." Her thoughts ran wild in voice, chores, humiliation, but her feet obeyed, carrying her through the dazzling hall into a quieter corridor. At the end, a polished wooden door shut behind her with a soft click. The room pressed in with quiet luxury. A long walnut table, black leather chairs, golden light washing over mood boards, pinned with sleek designs of upcoming cars. Harper hovered at the threshold, nerves spiking like she'd been shoved into an Ivy League exam she hadn't studied for. Alexander sat, smooth and deliberate, eyes skimming designs before lifting to her. "You said you can draw." Her breath caught. I mean, yes, I'm a freelancer. Just illustrations, Sometimes he slid a large sheet of paper across the table, along with a set of colored markers. The motion was crisp, final, like a gavel. Prove it. Her eyes widened. Prove it. Draw. His voice was firm, the weight of steel in every word. If you truly have talent, I may consider forgetting the invoice. Her throat went dry. The invoice could ruin my whole life. This is my only chance. She sat, hand trembling, as she picked up a pen. For a moment, she thought of drawing seriously something elegant, refined, worthy of his brand. But then a spark of mischief tugged her lips. Her humor, reckless as always, guided her hand. She sketched quickly an Aston Martin, sleek and proud. But on top, a jeweled crown, its headlights transformed into a pair of sunglasses, its grille curving into a smug grin. Beneath it, she scrawled a playful tagline, not just a car. This is your second love. Harper lifted her head, half terrified, half daring. Alexander took the drawing, studied it. His face gave nothing away. The silence stretched, thick as glass. Harper bit her lip, certain she'd signed her own death warrant. Then his mouth curved, a subtle smile, rare, measured, and warm. Not bad, Harper gasped, then laughed in relief. So, sentence reduced. He set the sketch back on the table, eyes lingering on her. Consider it a trial period, no salary. But if the results are good, the invoice disappears. Her chest lifted with a mix of joy and disbelief. She tapped the pen nervously on the table, masking a smile. At least throw in free coffee. This time, he didn't answer, but the slight tilt of his lips, the slow shake of his head, it said more than words, and Harper realized, maybe for the first time, she had managed to chip away at the ice he'd built around himself. Part 3. The CEO laughs for the first time. The conference room at Reed Motors was so still, Harper could hear her own heartbeat. Her silly sketch, the car with sunglasses, a crown perched on top, grinning ear to ear, lay bright and out of place on the sleek walnut table. Alexander leaned back in his chair, long fingers tapping a slow rhythm on the polished wood. His steel-gray eyes stayed locked on the drawing. Harper swallowed hard, her throat dry, as if she'd run a marathon. She sat upright, hands folded on her lap, fighting for composure, while waves of dread rose inside her. Oh no! He must think I just mocked a billion-dollar car brand. That's it, Harper. You're finished. The silence stretched, heavy as judgment. Then something unexpected. The corner of his mouth twitched, just a fraction, before curving into the faintest smile, A low, short laugh slipped out. Harper's head snapped up. She couldn't believe it. The man carved from stone, the CEO whose face never cracked, was laughing, not a polite smile, not forced, but real, deep. From somewhere inside his chest, his eyes met hers, brighter than usual. This is the first time I've seen anyone imagine. An Aston Martin with a crown and sunglasses, Harper exhaled in relief, lips quirking as she muttered, embarrassed. Well, I figured it suited the car. You know, supercars already strut around like they own the world. Alexander chuckled again, longer this time. Riche. The sound broke the cold tension of the room like a knife through ice. Harper stared at him, a mixture of shock and something else, something warm. Her chest tightened, not with fear, but with a fragile kind of tenderness. Wait, did I just make the CEO of Reed Motors actually laugh? She teased, half in disbelief. He didn't deny it. Adjusting his tie, he let his face slip back into seriousness, though the ghost of a smile lingered. Don't get too proud of yourself. But Harper couldn't hide the small bloom of joy rising in her chest. She knew it wasn't just the joke. It was proof she'd reached past the armor of a man no one dared approach. And in that moment, she realized their strange game had only just begun. Harper leaned forward, unwilling to stop. Mischief danced in her eyes. If one crack had appeared in the ice, why not test it again? She flipped the page, snatched up a marker, and sketched quickly. Alexander's brows rose, suspicion flickering across his face. Within minutes, Harper pushed the sheet across the table. It was a portrait Alexander himself, drawn in a sharp suit, but with a glowing golden halo above his head, and in his hand, a tiny bottle of olive green nail polish. Beneath it, she'd scribbled, St. Reed Patron, Saint of Nail Polish Repairs. Chin propped in her hand, she smirked playfully. What do you think could be your new campaign poster? A CEO who cares about every little scratch. The room froze for a beat. Alexander's eyes studied the drawing. Unreadable. Harper braced herself for an explosion, maybe even being thrown out on the spot. But then it came. Another laugh, deeper, warmer, rolling through the room like the first chords of a song long forgotten. His voice carried a richness that softened the luxury space around them. Harper grinned triumphantly. See, I knew it. You do have a sense of humor. You just hide it where no one dares to look. Alexander shook his head, setting the drawing aside, but his gaze lingered on her, no longer cold, but curious, almost intrigued. You're unlike anyone I've ever met. Harper shrugged, feigning casual, but pride curled at the corner of her lips. Good. I never planned on being like anyone else. For a moment, Silence reigned again, but it wasn't the heavy kind, it was charged. Alive, a billionaire used to sterile reports and billion-dollar strategies, a broke artist from Brooklyn. Two worlds as far apart as Fifth Avenue's opposite ends, and yet a smile, a sketch, and two ridiculous jokes had already begun to close the distance. When the meeting ended, Alexander folded the drawings into his file as if they were nothing more than paperwork. He rose, his authority settling back onto his shoulders. 1 week trial, prove yourself useful, and the invoice will be reconsidered. Harper's heart danced. She tilted her head with a sly grin. So basically, 1 week to make you laugh again, that's easy. He arched a brow, not answering. Simply striding to the door, Harper scampered after him, whispering under her breath, "Oh God, did I just sign the strangest contract in history?" Back in the showroom, employees glanced up. Whispers rippled when they saw Harper at the CEO's side. One receptionist muttered, "Who is she?" Harper caught it, winked, and stage whispered, "Special nail polish technician. If your car's scratched, I'm your girl." Laughter broke out. A young staffer even clapped softly. The icy atmosphere melted, replaced by warmth. Alexander turned, eyes narrowing, warning. But Harper caught it, that twitch at the corner of his mouth. He was fighting it. She leaned closer, whispering, "I saw that. You're smiling. Don't deny it." His gaze locked on hers, voice quiet, edged with sternness. "You are trouble." Harper's grin widened. "But the kind of trouble worth keeping." "Right." He didn't answer, but the look he gave her, deep, lingering, something unspoken, was enough. Warmth had slipped into the sleek, polished showroom. Later that day, Alexander assigned her a simple task: organizing glossy brochures at the reception desk. Harper promised herself, "Stay quiet. Don't cause chaos. Just do the job." But trouble was in her DNA. Balancing a heavy stack of brochures, she didn't notice the water clinging to her sneakers. The marble floor gleamed like glass. One step, a slip. Papers flew like startled birds, fluttering through the air, before scattering across the floor. Harper landed on her backside, right in front of a golden Lamborghini. The room froze. Employees stared. Visitors blinked. Harper brushed hair from her face, muttering aloud, "Well, at least I fell in front of a car that matches my bad luck." A ripple of giggles spread. Then laughter burst from the younger staff, breaking the showroom's solemn mood. From across the hall, Alexander stood with arms crossed. His expression stayed firm. But Harper saw it, that twitch again. Sitting on the floor, she clasped her hands in mock prayer. "Please don't fire me on my first day. Next time I'll fall in front of the cheaper car." I swear. The room erupted in laughter. Even a middle-aged customer chuckled, shaking his head. She's got spirit. That one, Alexander strode over, extending a hand. Harper hesitated, then placed hers in his. His grip was steady, pulling her to her feet. His words were low, meant only for her. One more slip. Harper, and I really will send the invoice. She leaned close, whispering back with a smile. But you're smiling right now. He said nothing, turning away, but she saw it, the trace of warmth he couldn't quite erase. That evening, as the showroom quieted, Harper sat scribbling in her sketchbook, a Ferrari and a Santa hat, a Lamborghini bundled under a blanket, afraid of the cold. Beneath, she scrawled, "Even cars need a break, especially after watching me crash today." She giggled softly. A deep voice behind her cut in. "Do you always laugh at your own drawings?" She jumped. Alexander stood there, arms folded, gaze on her sketchbook. His tone wasn't harsh, almost curious. She fumbled to close it, smiling sheepishly. Just silly doodles. He stepped closer, eyes scanning the page. His mouth quirked. "Cars afraid of the cold. No one in this company would ever think of that." Harper shrugged, cheeks warm. Maybe this place is too cold already. It needed someone to warm it up. She froze. Had she really just said that aloud? For a moment, he was silent. His eyes deepened, as though weighing the truth of her words. Then, quietly, "You're right. Since you arrived, it feels less cold." Her breath caught. The words were simple, but they pierced. She forced a shaky smile. "So, you admit I'm useful?" His gaze held hers, no longer icy. Something softer glimmered there. Perhaps just a little. Harper's lips curved, unable to hide her joy. In that moment, she knew, in a world of polished cars and billion-dollar deals, she had left her mark. Another scratch. But this one, no one would ever want to cover up. Part 4. The Summons. The tiny Brooklyn apartment was cloaked in darkness, lit only by the faint golden glow of an old desk lamp. Harper sat curled up in her chair, laptop open, surrounded by a scatter of sketches, cold coffee cups, and half-empty ramen boxes. Amidst the clutter, one thing stood out: the matte black business card with silver embossed letters. Alexander Reed, CEO, Reed Motors. She had stared at it more times than she could count that day, and every time her heart pounded faster. The CEO actually gave me his card. The man whose Aston Martin I smeared with nail polish is giving me a chance to prove myself. This is insane. Harper let out a small laugh, then sighed, ruffling her already messy hair. Growing up, she had only known odd jobs: waiting tables, delivering food, sketching for pennies online. Never in her wildest dreams Did she imagine stepping into that world of shimmering showrooms, million-dollar contracts, and people in tailored suits with eyes colder than steel? Just then, the chime of a new email broke the silence. Harper jumped, rushing to her laptop. The sender was startlingly simple. Reed Motors, com, subject, 10 a.m. Tomorrow, message, come to the showroom. I have work for you. That was it. No greeting, no explanation, just a command. Cold and sharp, Harper's jaw dropped. She whispered, half in panic, half in disbelief, work. What kind of work? Washing cars to pay him back. Or maybe he wants me to sign the repair bill for the Aston Martin. 100 dreadful scenarios flashed through her mind. An astronomical bill, scrubbing the showroom toilets, or worse, being humiliated in front of a line of black-suited employees. And yet, beneath the fear, a sliver of something else glimmered hope, because he hadn't called the police, he hadn't yelled, he had even smiled. If there's still a chance, I have to take it. Maybe this is the turning point I've been waiting for my whole life. She patted her cheeks awake, grabbed her sketchbook and a handful of colored pens, and stuffed them into her backpack as if they were good luck charms. Lifting her eyes to the mirror on the wall, she caught her own reflection, green eyes lit with both worry and anticipation. All right, Harper Lane, tomorrow, either your life changes forever or you're going to jail for debt. Outside, New York's horns blared. Street lights flickered into the small apartment. Harper pressed her forehead against the cool glass, clutching the black card in her hand. Inside her chest, fear and hope wrestled, pulling her into a sleepless night. By morning, Harper was up earlier than usual. She stood in front of the mirror, trying on outfit after outfit, only to toss them aside. The light blue dress she'd bought on clearance, too flimsy. Her favorite yellow hoodie, too sloppy. In the end, she settled on a slightly wrinkled white shirt, dark jeans, and worn-out sneakers clean. At least, whatever. I can't turn into a Fifth Avenue socialite overnight. She slung her backpack over her shoulder, tucked in her sketchbook, colored pens, a bottle of water, and the olive green nail polish. Just in case, you never know, it might save me again. The morning subway was packed. Harper clung to the pole, stomach tight with nerves. When the train pulled into 59th Street, she looked up and saw the gleaming towers above. That was it, the Reed Motors showroom. An enormous glass building that gleamed like a museum, dazzling in the morning sun. Stepping onto the street, Harper's heart pounded harder. The showroom loomed before her, its glass walls reflecting sunlight, steel beams glistening. Inside, luxury cars were displayed like sacred statues. Ferrari red, Lamborghini gold, Aston Martin silver, each one perched on a rotating pedestal. The revolving doors opened, and Harper stepped inside. The air felt different here. The scent of fresh leather mingled with subtle cologne. The granite floors gleamed like mirrors. Black-suited employees moved with precision, speaking in clipped phrases, eyes sharp as blades. Harper felt like she had wandered into another universe, one where even the smallest frown could cost millions. She hesitated at the reception desk. The woman there, hair tied neatly back, lips painted bright red, looked her over from head to toe. "May I help you?" Harper drew a breath and slid the black business card across the desk. "I'm Harper Lane. I have an appointment with Alexander Reed." For a flicker of a moment, the receptionist's expression shifted to surprise. She lifted the phone, murmured a few words, and then Harper heard them steady, commanding footsteps approaching. Alexander appeared, gray suit, deep blue tie, tall frame, every stride controlled. His eyes swept over her once. From head to toe, Harper had never felt smaller. "You're on time." His voice was low, clipped, no praise, no reproach, just precise, like numbers on a balance sheet. Harper forced a nervous smile. "Well, I figured if I was late, the bill might grow a few extra zeros." Nearby employees glanced at each other in shock. No one joked with Alexander Reed, yet he paused for half a second, the corner of his mouth twitching as if restraining something. Then he turned. "Follow me." Heart racing, Harper obeyed. She didn't know if she was walking into judgment or destiny. The frosted glass doors slid shut behind them, and the air grew colder. Gone was the glittering showroom. Here was a stark chamber, a long walnut table, black leather chairs, a giant screen, flashing car designs, mood boards pinned neatly along the wall. It felt less like a meeting and more like a courtroom. Alexander sat at the head of the table, unbuttoning his jacket with sharp precision. He didn't invite her, but his piercing gaze left no choice. Harper sat opposite, heart pounding like a drum. "You know why you're here, don't you?" His voice cut through the silence. Harper tried a smile. "Because of that tiny little scratch on your car." Alexander tilted his head, his gray eyes dissecting her every thought. "Tiny to you, but in this world, a scratch can cost tens of thousands of dollars." Her palms grew damp. "This is it. He's about to hand me the bill." He pulled a paper from his briefcase and slid it across the table. Harper's breath caught, hands trembling. She unfolded it only to find a car design sketch. She blinked. "This isn't an invoice." The faintest curve touched his lips, though his eyes stayed razor sharp. "I don't need your apology. I want proof. You turned a blunder into a solution with nail polish. Now prove it wasn't luck. Harper's eyes widened. You mean I want you to draw? He interrupted, his tone steady but heavy with command. Right here, right now. She glanced around. Paper, colored pens, already laid out, waiting. He had planned this. Her pulse quickened. This CEO. He's insane. But if I say no, I'm finished. Arms folded, his gaze locked onto hers. You have 30 minutes. The theme, the next Reed Motors car. Surprise me. Do that, and I'll forget the bill. For a moment, Harper froze. Then a laugh slipped out. All right, but fair warning. I don't draw to please people. I draw to be remembered. He didn't answer, just nodded once, eyes burning with quiet fire. Harper took the pen, inhaled deeply, and began. At first, the lines were shaky. The room was so silent she could hear the clock ticking, each second pressing against her ribs. Alexander sat still, unblinking, watching. 30 minutes. Fail, and it's over. Succeed, and maybe I get to breathe. She started with sleek curves, the frame of a car, but soon Harper's essence slipped in. Her eyes lit up. Her hand moved faster. The design grew whimsical. A tiny crown on the roof, headlights, wearing mirrored sunglasses, and on the front wheel, a single red stiletto, like the car, was strutting into a gala. Harper whispered under her breath, "Cars have personalities. Why not let them live? Just once." She smiled, letting the colors spill. The lines weren't perfect, messy, even but alive. Alexander's eyes sharpened. He watched the way she tilted her head, the strands of hair falling loose, the way she bit her lip when focused, the soft laugh when she added a bold detail. 10 minutes left. She scrawled a slogan at the bottom. Not just a car. This is your second love. She dropped the pen, exhaling as though she'd run a marathon. Her hands still trembled, but her eyes gleamed with pride. She slid the sketch across the table. Done. If you don't like it, send me the bill. I know how to survive on instant noodles for a few years. Alexander studied the drawing in silence. Every detail, his jaw tightened, his fingers tapping against the table. Then, slowly, he looked up. For the first time, Harper saw it, genuine surprise flickering in his eyes. He set the sketch down, voice low and deliberate. You are reckless, but I'll admit, I remember this more than any polished model I've seen. Harper's heart pounded, though she tried to sound casual. Then I've done my job. I don't live to be another fancy copy. I live to make people laugh and remember. He was quiet for a moment, then leaned back, arms folded, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. Harper Lane. Now I see why you dared to use nail polish on my Aston Martin. The room was still, the air heavy with tension. Harper clasped her hands beneath the table, her soul swinging between hope and dread. His fingers tapped against the wood, each sound like a drop of water into her chest. Finally, he looked up, eyes sharp, unyielding. "All right, you'll stay at the showroom." Her mouth fell open. "Stay? You mean like picking up papers or emergency nail polish specialist?" A shadow of a smile crossed his lips, faint as moonlight on water. "I don't need someone to pick up papers. I need someone who can turn mistakes into opportunity and tension into laughter." Harper blinked, her heart racing, covering it with a half joke. "So basically, you're hiring me as a professional troublemaker, if that's what you want to call it." His tone was even, but his gaze never left her. "I call it an experiment. 1 week, unpaid. Prove this showroom is better with you in it, and the bill disappears." Harper swallowed hard. 1 week, no salary, but an opportunity. His words echoed like dramatic music in her head. "If I succeed, I don't just escape debt. I earn a place in a world that was never meant for me." She drew a breath, then smirked, her green eyes glinting with mischief. "Just a week? Huh? I hope you're ready for more laughter than engine noise in this place." Alexander leaned back, the faintest smirk curving his lips before vanishing. "We'll see." Harper Lane. In that moment, Harper realized this summons wasn't just about judgment. It was a gamble, a high-stakes wager where she, poor, clumsy Harper Lane, would have to prove she could make the cold, polished world of a billionaire CEO feel alive. Part 5. A Talent Unfolds. The main conference room at Reed Motors blazed with harsh white light that morning. A long walnut table stretched across the room, covered in design drafts, sales reports, and steaming espressos. More than a dozen executives sat in perfect rows, their tailored suits crisp, their faces tight with tension. On the giant screen, a chart of red and blue lines told the story no one wanted to see. Sales had plateaued, the arrow refusing to climb. At the very end of the table sat Harper, small and out of place in the solemn air. She slid her chair closer, trying to shrink into invisibility. Her yellow hoodie had been swapped for a plain white shirt, but the worn sneakers still clashed with the gleaming leather shoes all around her. 1 week on trial, she whispered to herself. Just survive it. Harper. At the head of the table sat Alexander. His face was carved in stone, his voice steady, but sharp enough to cut glass. "You've all seen the numbers. The new line hasn't made the splash we expected. I want fresh ideas, urgently." A marketing manager rose and proposed a television campaign. Another suggested celebrity partnerships. But the more Harper listened, the drier it all felt. Numbers, strategies, polished plans, but nothing that could make someone laugh, nothing that could make a heart stir. She bit her pen, eyes fixed on her sketchbook. In her mind, she saw it clearly. A sports car wearing a birthday hat. If cars had personalities, maybe people would feel closer to them. Why not? Alexander's voice sliced through her daydream. Next idea. No one spoke. The silence thickened, and before she realized it, Harper's hand shot into the air. Her stomach dropped. Oh no. Harper, what did you just do? Every head turned toward her. Alexander raised an eyebrow, his gaze like a blade. You have something to add. Harper swallowed hard, then pushed her sketchbook to the center of the table. I think maybe our cars look too distant, too perfect. Young people today don't just buy cars to drive, they buy them to tell a story. If a car had a personality, something a little playful, it might make people love it more. The room went silent. A few skeptical glances darted around. Her heart thudded painfully, but she took a breath, flipped open her sketchbook, and revealed the first page, a sleek sports car wearing a birthday hat, balloons floating around it. Her voice came out small, almost embarrassed, like this, for example. Not just a car. This is your second love. For a long, dreadful moment, no one moved. Harper thought she was finished, about to be laughed out of the room. But then from the far end of the table, a soft chuckle, then another, and suddenly a ripple of laughter spread across the younger staff, breaking the ice that had weighed down the room. Alexander remained still, his eyes fixed on the sketch, but Harper noticed it, the faint twitch at the corner of his mouth, the first crack in the ice. The young manager, seated nearest to her, was the first to laugh out loud, trying in vain to cover his grin. A marketing assistant, who had been tense all morning, burst into a full laugh, her voice bubbling. Oh my God, a car in a birthday hat. That would go viral instantly. The whole room shifted, cold air turning warm. Pages were passed around, laughter spilling over as they noticed the details. Headlights grinning wide, wheels in red stilettos, the hand-drawn slogan scrawled with cheeky confidence. Put this on Instagram. It'll blow up. Read Motors. But funny, that's never been done. Why not try it? Harper sat frozen, hardly believing it. They're actually laughing. They actually like it. Then Alexander raised a hand, and the room fell silent. He stood, walked to Harper, and picked up her sketch. His long fingers held the flimsy page as if it were a $1 million contract. His gray eyes scanned every line. The silence was unbearable. Harper clutched her shirt, bracing for the verdict. This is it. I'm about to be thrown out. He looked up, his eyes locking on hers, and then something no one expected. A low, short laugh escaped his lips for the first time. I'm looking at a car that knows how to throw itself a birthday party. The room erupted in laughter. No one could believe it. The famously stern CEO had just cracked a joke. Harper's jaw dropped. Then she laughed too, relief flooding through her chest, warming her from the inside out. She had done it. She had made Alexander Reed laugh. He set the paper down, carefully, like evidence filed away. His voice carried clearly across the room. We'll try this direction. A campaign with humor. Something more approachable. Harper Lane. You'll join the creative team. Harper's eyes widened. She nearly jumped from her chair. Me? Seriously? Yes. His head tilted slightly, the faintest curve to his mouth. Don't make me regret it. Every pair of eyes turned to her, some surprised, some doubtful, some quietly encouraging. Harper clutched her sketchbook, feeling a door swing open in her heart. The creative department of Reed Motors on the 5th floor was a different world. Glass walls looked down over 5th Avenue traffic. Inside, mood boards plastered the walls. Unfinished posters lay scattered across tables. Computer screens glowed with 3D models. Employees dressed more casually. Here headphones, gum, rolled up sleeves. But their energy was sharp, professional. Harper stood awkwardly at the doorway, clutching her sketchbook like a shield. A woman with short hair and leather pants glanced over, frowning. Who's she? The manager beside Harper answered simply, new. CEO's orders. That word CEO was enough to turn heads. Eyebrows lifted, smirks spread. Harper gave a hesitant wave. Hi, I'm Harper. No official title yet. Maybe just call me the temporary troublemaker. A ripple of laughter rolled through the room, half mocking, half curious, not exactly friendly, but not hostile either. She was given a corner seat next to a stack of blank paper and colored markers, while the others debated their polished luxury as a lifestyle concept. Harper doodled. A Lamborghini in a tuxedo, a Ferrari in a red scarf, braving winter snow. What are you doing? The voice was sharp. Matt, the head of creative, infamous for his high standards. Harper flinched, covering the page. Oh, just doodling. Matt snorted. This isn't kindergarten. Around here, every sketch has to sell for millions. Heat rushed to her cheeks, but Harper smiled, pushing the page toward him. Then let's see if this one can sell a laugh. The page made its way around the table. At first silence, then a woman with curls burst out laughing. A Ferrari in a scarf. I'd hang this in my living room. Someone else added, that's lifestyle. Cars as characters, not just machines. Matt scowled, but he couldn't stop the wave of laughter spreading across the room. Harper sat still, her heart pounding, equal parts terrified and thrilled. And then the door opened. Alexander stepped inside. Instantly, the laughter died. His gaze swept the room, settling on the sketch in someone's hand. He took it, studied it in silence. Every breath in the room stalled. Harper clenched her fists, waiting for the rebuke. Here it comes. He'll say, "I've embarrassed the brand." But Alexander looked up, eyes meeting hers. The faintest smile touched his lips. At the very least, it makes me want to see more. A ripple of shock ran through the room, and in that moment, Harper knew she had taken her first real step into this world. The next morning, Harper found a folder neatly placed on her desk. Bold letters across the cover read, "Reed Motors, Experimental Campaign." Matt slid it toward her, his tone a mix of reluctance and resignation. "CEO's orders. You get a trial run. 5 posters, each model with its own personality. If it works, we'll use it. If not, it ends here." Harper pressed her lips together, hiding a smile while her heart thundered. She opened the file. 5 flagship models, each needing its own illustrated campaign. 1 week, no armor, just my pen. This is war. Her hands trembled as she picked up her markers, then stilled as the ideas flowed. An Aston Martin strutting down a runway, paparazzi flashes exploding. A luxury SUV turned into a frantic dad, loaded with luggage, bikes, and a dog's head sticking out the window. A coupe flashing mischievous eyes, holding a cocktail. "Ride me, if you dare." Every stroke, every idea ignited like sparks. Harper forgot the world, lost in her universe, where cars had hearts and personalities. When she set down her pen at last, the room had gone quiet. Her co-workers had gathered behind her, eyes fixed on the posters. 1 beat of silence. Then laughter broke out like a flood. "Look at that SUV, Dad. His luggage is falling everywhere." That coupe. Total bad boy energy. The Aston Martin on a catwalk. "I can't take it." The room erupted. The creative staff, who had once dismissed her, now laughed, pointing, snapping photos. Harper sat in the middle, cheeks flushed, eyes shining. For the first time, they were laughing with her. Then the sound of footsteps. Alexander again. The laughter cut off instantly. He walked in slowly, picked up a poster, the Aston Martin on the runway. He studied it, long and silent. Harper braced herself. Here it comes. But instead, his voice was low, thoughtful. "At least this shows me a Reed Motors that feels different, more human." Her heart stopped, then surged with warmth. She had done the impossible, made not only the staff, but Alexander himself truly laughed. That weekend, Reed Motors unveiled its new showroom display. Golden lights glowed across polished cars, staff crisp in suits, ready for VIP guests. But this time, something unexpected hung on the walls. Harper's caricature posters. At the entrance, a giant Aston Martin strutted under the words, "Style that steals the spotlight," near the SUVs. The busy dad with bikes, luggage, and a happy dog in the coupe section. The bad boy car raising a cocktail, not just a car. This is your second love. At first, a few managers shook their heads. What was the CEO thinking? This isn't comic art. This is a billion-dollar brand. But within 10 minutes, the tide turned. Young visitors stopped, laughed, took pictures. This SUV is literally my dad. Finally, Reed Motors is speaking our language. They checked in on Instagram. Hashtags spreading fast. Showroom diaries. Reed Motors' second love. From a distance, Alexander stood with hands in his pockets. Watching the crowd, he heard laughter, chatter, even a serious VIP chuckling at the Ferrari in a scarf. A couple walked to the reception desk, asking if they could buy a poster along with their car order. Harper stood hidden behind a car, heart soaring, almost unable to breathe. She could hardly believe her impulsive sketches now filled the walls of a billion-dollar showroom, turning its cold, polished air into something warm, alive. Alexander stepped to her side, still looking at the laughing crowd. His voice came low, measured. "You see, people remember the things that make them smile. Cars are no different." Harper let out a shaky laugh. "So, does this mean I passed the trial?" He tilted his head, the faintest smile breaking through. "It's too early to say, but at least today, you've proven you're worth far more than a repair bill." Harper turned to him, heart racing, and in his gray eyes, no longer cold and distant, she saw something new. A door had opened into a world, and perhaps something greater that she had never imagined. Part 6. The $1,000,000 Deal. JFK Airport, a winter morning. Outside, the wind slashed in icy gusts, but inside the VIP lounge was all warmth leather chairs, glowing lights, the scent of fresh coffee drifting from the bar. Harper stood in the middle of it all, like a misplaced sketch on a blank page, her old backpack slipping off one shoulder, sneakers worn thin, hair tied up in a messy knot. She still couldn't believe she was boarding a plane with Alexander Reed, the CEO himself, bound for the International Auto Conference in Miami. "Harper, why are you standing there?" The deep voice came from behind her, calm but commanding. She spun around. Alexander strode forward in a navy suit and steel gray tie, carrying a sleek leather suitcase. His very presence silenced the space for a heartbeat. Harper felt like she was little more than a doodle next to a masterpiece. I was just wondering if they got my ticket wrong, she murmured with a half smile. Someone like me flying business class feels, well, wrong. The corner of his mouth tugged upward. I was wondering why I brought you at all. Then I remembered. You made the whole showroom laugh. Maybe Miami needs the same. It was half compliment, half warning. Harper pouted, but her heart skipped a beat. On the plane, the wide seats made her fidget like a child. This chair is so big, I could take a nap in it and fit my backpack too. Alexander shot her a look, stern as always, but when she pulled out her bright yellow cloth mask and wore it upside down like a sleep mask, he shook his head, eyes softening just a fraction. Are you trying to cover your eyes or frighten the attendants? Both. Harper grinned, multi-purpose, just like me. He turned away, but she saw his shoulders tremble with suppressed laughter. As the plane climbed, Harper pressed her face to the window, eyes wide with wonder. Clouds swirled like oceans of cotton, the sky painted in hues of pink and blue. She whispered dreamily, if I could draw this, I'd add a flying car with an ice cream cone strapped to the roof. Alexander glanced at her, lips parting to speak, but said nothing. He simply leaned back, a smile flickering across his face without his knowing. Harper caught it, and something shifted in her chest. Behind that steel facade, she thought, there might be a corner of warmth, waiting for someone to find it. She tilted her head against the glass, whispering to herself, Miami will be long. Maybe this is my chance to discover another side of Alexander Reed. The Miami Hotel was a palace of glass and marble. Chandeliers rained crystal light from ceilings high above. Polished stone gleamed underfoot. Outside, limousines lined up like soldiers. Inside, reporters, executives, and magnates crowded the red carpet. Harper followed Alexander closely, heart racing like a drumline. She felt like a background character who had wandered onto the wrong stage. He moved with unshakable ease, the click of his polished shoes echoing across marble. At the reception desk, staff bowed with respect. Welcome, Mr. Reed. Conference Hall A awaits. Inside, golden light spilled across long tables dressed in white linen, contracts stacked in neat piles, pens gleaming, translators and media poised to capture every word. Harper sat at the farthest end, clutching her sketchbook like a shield, trying to look like a casual photographer rather than a girl who didn't belong. Alexander, at the center, shoulders broad, gaze sharp, was ready for war. The presentation began Reed Motors, unveiling new models, advanced technology, fuel efficiency, On screen, cars streaked through city lights like shooting stars. Everything flowed smoothly until a low, grating voice cut through. The quality is undeniable, but let's be honest, Mr. Reed. It was Keller, the hard-nosed European distributor, his silver hair gleaming under the lights. His eyes, sharp as blades, bore into Alexander. Our market is saturated. Why should young customers spend money on Reed Motors? They don't care about engines. They care about emotion. What do you have to offer beyond charts and numbers? Silence fell. All eyes turned to Alexander. He leaned forward, ready to answer, when suddenly Harper's hand shot up from the corner like a schoolgirl's. Her blood froze. Oh no, what did I just do? Keller's brows lifted in amusement. And you are? Harper rose, clutching her sketchbook to her chest. Her voice wavered, then steadied. I'm a trial employee at Reed Motors. Unofficial title, professional troublemaker. A ripple of laughter rolled across the hall. Harper flushed red, but carried on. Reed Motors doesn't just sell cars. We sell stories. A car isn't just a machine. It's a companion. It's there on your first date, on your family's summer road trip, in the heart of a romance or a dream. Our cars aren't numbers. They're characters. She flipped open her sketchbook, holding up a caricature. A coupe in a crown, headlights and mirrored sunglasses. Gasps rippled, followed by chuckles. Young people don't buy cars to get from point A to point B. They buy them to tell their story, and Reed Motors is the inspiration for those stories. The room went still. Then applause first scattered, then swelling. Even Keller nodded, a glint of interest in his eyes. At the table, Alexander sat motionless, his hand clenched into a fist, not in anger, but in restraint, surprise, admiration. The applause grew into a roar, echoing against the gilded walls. Harper's cheeks burned, her heart soaring and trembling all at once. Keller leaned forward, his tone lighter now. You're right, young lady. Emotion sells more than numbers. I've never seen Reed Motors approach it this way. Interesting indeed. Harper let out a shaky breath, sneaking a glance at Alexander. He didn't clap. He didn't smile, but his silence was louder than applause. Then he rose, navy suit crisp, voice deep and steady. Thank you, Mr. Keller, for your candor, and thank you to my employee for her spontaneity. Harper grimaced. My employee, that's it. But Alexander's next words stunned her. Reed Motors may be known for technology, but that doesn't erase the truth. Every car carries a story, and today, I won't dismiss what she said. In fact, I agree. We must let the young see themselves in our cars. The hall buzzed with approval. Keller smiled, settling back in his chair. Good, Mr. Reed. If logic and emotion both live in your plan, then we have much to discuss. Tension dissolved. Harper sank back into her chair, clutching her sketchbook, heart swelling with relief. I didn't ruin it. I saved it. After the meeting, when the crowd dispersed, Alexander approached. His tall frame cast a shadow over her. He didn't speak at first, his gray eyes drilling into hers. Harper stammered, I'm sorry if I overstepped. A pause. Then his voice, low, almost private. You drive me insane, but you saved the meeting. Harper froze. Saved the meeting. It was the first time Alexander Reed had acknowledged her with anything close to genuine praise. He turned to leave, but just before he did, a fleeting smile crossed his lips. Don't get used to it. I don't compliment people often. Harper stood stunned, her face flushed. A seed had been planted. A crack had opened in the wall of steel. That night, Miami shed its corporate mask. The sea breeze carried the scent of salt and grilled seafood. Waves whispered against the shore, mingling with soft jazz from a beachside bistro. Harper followed Alexander into a small restaurant where wooden tables sat right on the sand, candle jars flickering. She blinked in surprise. I thought you'd choose something chandelier and white tablecloth fancy. After a day, suffocating in suits, I need to breathe. He pulled out a chair for her, brusque, but unexpectedly courteous. And this suits you better. Her heart skipped, not for the compliment, but because for the first time, Alexander had chosen something ordinary. When the food arrived, lobster, tropical salad, chilled white wine, Harper laughed. This is ordinary. My ordinary is a hot dog cart or instant noodles. He smirked faintly. Perhaps our definitions differ, but tonight... He poured her wine, his voice softer than usual. I choose yours. Her hand trembled as she lifted the glass, the wine shimmering like her restless heart. She teased, Careful, Alexander Reed. If you keep this up, tomorrow I'll drag you to the taco stand at the night market. Let's see if you dare. Try me. His eyes glinted. Playful, daring. They laughed, their voices blending with the waves, an unfamiliar melody, yet strangely comforting. Across the candlelight, Harper studied him closer. His stern features were eased, his gray eyes warm, something she'd never seen in the boardroom. You know, she murmured, back in the meeting, I thought you'd cut me off instantly, but you let me speak. He set his glass down, gaze steady, because I wanted to see if you truly believed it, and you made them believe too. Her chest tightened. He hadn't rescued her. He had let her prove herself. Dinner ended as the night breeze cooled. Walking back along the sand, Harper slowed, letting the waves kiss her shoes. Alexander matched her pace, close enough to touch, and yet it felt like they'd already drawn nearer than ever before. In her heart, a thought stirred. Maybe the gap between a billionaire CEO and a clumsy Brooklyn girl wasn't impossible to cross. The next morning, the main hall of the Miami hotel glittered under the press lights. The air was thick with tension. Every handshake worth millions, every pen stroke a gamble. Contracts lay stacked high, pens poised, cameras ready. Harper hovered at the back, camera in hand, though her heart raced almost as fast as Alexander's. He sat across from Keller, calm and steady, voice firm. As he outlined strategy, everything seemed to flow, until Keller leaned back, arms crossed, eyes cold. "Your plan is solid, Mr. Reed, but Reed Motors is too serious, too cold. Young buyers won't remember numbers. They'll remember a feeling. Give me one last reason to believe you're different." The room held its breath. Alexander paused, weighing his words, and just then Harper sneezed, loud, jarringly loud in the silence. Laughter rippled across the hall. Harper ducked, mortified. Alexander turned, his gaze like a blade, but when he saw her flushed face, a spark softened in his eyes. An idea flickered. He rose, his voice carrying through the hall. "Mr. Keller, you're right. Numbers aren't enough. People need emotion, and sometimes emotion comes from the unexpected." He gestured to Harper. She froze, shaking her head, but Keller's amused nod left her no escape. "Young lady, yesterday you made us laugh. Today show me. Reed Motors has heart." Her pulse thundered. Only one choice left. Leap. She opened her sketchbook, scribbling furiously. In minutes, a drawing appeared. A sleek Aston Martin, sneezing, headlights squinted shut, exhaust puffing smoke shaped like a tissue. Beneath it, even legends sneeze to remind you they're alive. The hall erupted in laughter. Keller slapped the table, roaring, "Yes, that's it. A brand willing to laugh at itself has the strength to last." He seized a pen and signed the contract on the spot. Cameras flashed. Applause rolled like thunder. Alexander looked at Harper. For the first time, he didn't hide it. His lips curved. His eyes softened. Admiration plain. And in that moment, surrounded by golden lights and thunderous applause, Harper realized a clumsy girl from Brooklyn had just helped seal $1 million deal. More than that, she had made the icebound CEO smile with nothing but her own unpolished spark. Part 7. A Bitter Misunderstanding. Miami nights. The 5-star hotel glowed bright on the outside, but its hallways were hushed, almost eerie in their silence. Harper had just finished editing photos from the conference and was heading down for a bottle of water. When the elevator doors slid open, she stepped out and froze. A voice, familiar. Alexander. He stood by the tall glass windows near the bar, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a phone to his ear. The golden light cast his tall frame across the marble floor, but it wasn't his silhouette that stopped Harper's breath. It was his voice. Gone was the clipped, cold tone of the boardroom. In its place, something softer, warm, intimate. Yes, I know. I'll be home soon. Take care of yourself. Remember your medicine. I miss you too. I miss you very much. Harper's heart seized. I miss you too. 4 words, sharper than any reprimand. She ducked behind a potted plant, clutching her backpack like a shield. Her pulse hammered in her ears. The laughter they had shared on the beach last night, the softened look in his eyes after the meeting, all of it shattered like glass. So it was all in my head. Alexander's voice lowered, tender still. I'll be back soon. Don't overwork. Sleep well. The call ended. Silence returned, broken only by the hum of the air conditioning. Harper bit her lip, eyes stinging. She turned and hurried down the hall, afraid that if she stayed another second, she would break down right there. Her mind whispered bitterly, never make yourself a side character in someone else's love story. Back in her room, the door shut with a slam. Harper sank onto the bed, head in her hands. The echo of last night's warmth still lingered in her chest, only to be doused in a single phone call. She muttered under her breath, voice tight with hurt. So stupid. Harper, to think a man like him. Her words trailed off, swallowed by the distant murmur of the sea. Morning broke over Miami in a blaze of gold. The beach stretched like a ribbon of sunlit silk. Yet to Harper, the light seemed dim. She tied her hair neatly, straightened her plain white shirt, and made a quiet vow. Today will be different. Keep your distance. No more illusions. The conference hall buzzed with activity. Staff rushed. Guests conversed in a dozen languages. Harper lingered at the back, adjusting her camera straps. Eyes down, Alexander arrived, gray suit, charcoal tie, stride steady, gaze unyielding. Normally, Harper would have stolen glances, tucking his image into her sketchbook later, but today she kept her eyes fixed on the floor, pretending to fuss with her camera. Harper, his voice, sounded just behind her. She startled, forcing a polite smile. Good morning, sir. Alexander's eyes narrowed slightly, as if studying a crooked frame. Sir, yesterday you called me the king of cars. He even joked I should wear a crown. Harper swallowed, steadying her tone. I went too far yesterday. Sorry. From now on, I'll keep the distance. His smoky gray eyes darkened, but he said nothing more, only nodded and turned away. The rest of the day, Harper kept her vow. While photographing, she avoided standing near him. When offering water, she set it down and retreated. The light-hearted quips that once slipped from her lips were gone, replaced by silence. During the break, Alexander approached, handing her a cold bottle. "It's hot. Drink." She forced a thin smile. "Thanks. I need to check the photos now." "Excuse me." And she walked away, leaving him standing, unsettled. He wasn't used to this, her sudden coolness. She had been the one to bring laughter into his world. Something had shifted, and he hated not knowing why. Alone in the corner, Harper scrolled through photos, though her eyes blurred with unshed tears. "He cares, but not for me. Just courtesy." The voice I heard last night, that warmth, belongs to someone else, not me. She gripped the water bottle tight. "At least now I know. Don't dream about a man whose heart already belongs elsewhere." That evening, after hours of tense sessions, Harper gathered her laptop and camera, eager to slip away. But just as she left the hall, a low voice stopped her. "Harper, have dinner with me tonight." Her heart stuttered. Dinner with him. Images flashed last night's beachside laughter, his softened gaze as he poured her wine. But then, like a cold blade, those 4 words returned. "I miss you." She steadied herself, forcing composure. "Thank you for the invitation, but I'm tired. I'll just eat at the hotel." Alexander froze, disbelief flickering across his face. He was accustomed to nods, to compliance, to polite eagerness, never refusal. Tired. His voice dropped. "Or avoiding me." Harper bit her lip, tone flat. "I just need rest." "Don't trouble yourself, Mr. Reed." The air thickened. He stared hard at her, searching, probing. Finally, his voice iced over. "As you wish." He turned, strides long and sharp, leaving her alone in the glittering lobby. Her chest ached. Refusing him should have felt like relief. Instead, it left her hollow. As she hurried to her room, she whispered, almost to convince herself, "Good, Harper. Keep it that way. Don't fall deeper." That night, her balcony overlooked the restless sea. Waves crashed, city lights shimmered, but Harper couldn't focus. Each time her fingers stilled on the keyboard, Alexander's face returned the softened smile, the tender voice, not meant for her. Sleep never came. Near midnight, restless, she slipped on a sweater and went downstairs for water. The lobby was quiet, bathed in golden light, and there he was. Alexander sat alone in a corner, jacket off, tie loosened, a magazine in hand, but his eyes were unfocused, staring at nothing. Harper froze. She should turn back, but the small convenience shop stood behind him. She walked quickly, trying to slip past until his eyes lifted. "Thought you'd be asleep," he said quietly. Not cold, just heavy. Harper clutched her bag strap. "I just needed water." Silence lingered. He set the magazine down, eyes never leaving hers. "You've been different today, avoiding me." Her throat tightened. She wanted to shout the truth that she'd heard his phone call, that it had torn her apart. Instead, she forced out, "I'm just focusing on work." He studied her, long and hard, as though peeling back layers. But instead of pressing, his voice dropped, gentler than rest. "Tomorrow will be long." She nodded, fled to the elevator, and only then let her eyes blur. Left alone, Alexander leaned back, tapping the magazine with restless fingers. His gaze darkened, not with anger, but confusion. "Harper Lane, what are you hiding from me?" Both of them knew the truth. Bitter and silent, the distance between them was widening, though neither wanted it to. On their last morning in Miami, Harper wheeled her suitcase through the shining lobby, her heart heavy. She couldn't decide if she was relieved to leave or saddened by the wall now standing between them. Alexander was already there, crisp white shirt, jacket draped casually over his arm. Still, every inch the CEO, but Harper noticed the faint shadows under his eyes, as if he, too, hadn't slept. She meant to slip by unnoticed until a bright, cheerful voice rang out, "Big brother." The whole lobby turned. Harper froze. A young woman rushed forward, early 30s, brown hair tied neatly, eyes sparkling with warmth. She threw her arms around Alexander. Harper's world tilted. "Big brother." Alexander stiffened for a beat, then laughed, embracing her back. "Claire, what are you doing here? I thought you were in Boston." Surprise visit. Claire's voice was melodic, her smile radiant. She turned to Harper curiously. "And this must be your new colleague." Harper stood frozen. Alexander nodded. "Harper Lane. This is Claire, my sister." The ground seemed to shift. His sister. The tender phone call. The words, "I miss you." Relief flooded her chest, along with a flush of shame. Claire extended a friendly hand. "Nice to meet you. Harper, my brother rarely talks about anyone, but this time." "Oh, never mind." Harper's cheeks burned. She shook Claire's hand, voice trembling. "Lovely to meet you." Alexander glanced sideways, a flicker of amusement and something sharper in his eyes. Leaning close, he murmured for her alone, "So that's why you've been distant these past 2 days." Her heart leapt. He knew. He had guessed. Claire chatted on, drawing Alexander toward the cafe. Harper stood still, relief, battling humiliation in her chest. The bitter misunderstanding had lifted, but its aftertaste lingered. As they boarded the car for the airport, Alexander leaned near, his voice low, almost a whisper. Harper, next time, if you want the truth, just ask me. Don't wound yourself with guesses. His eyes met hers, steady and real, until she looked away. She nodded faintly, lips pressed tight, while her heart surged with a tangle of emotions, relief, tenderness, and a new fear. Fear that she was stepping too close to a world that might one day break her. Part 8. Sweet Healing. Miami Airport buzzed like a chaotic symphony, luggage wheels rattling, flight announcements blaring, the smell of coffee mingling with the soft trail of perfume in the crowd. Harper trailed behind Alexander and Claire, her suitcase rolling along, her heart still tangled with the awkwardness of the morning. Claire chattered brightly about Boston, her hectic schedule, relying on her digital calendar just to remind her when to eat and when to sleep. Alexander listened intently, occasionally nodding, occasionally reminding her, in his steady, older brother tone, "Don't push yourself too hard. Claire, you always forget your limits." From a few steps behind, Harper's gaze lingered on the back of his crisp white shirt. Her chest still carried the storm of last night, so it was only his sister. All those sleepless nights, all those little stabs of jealousy, just a cruel misunderstanding of fate. In the VIP lounge, Claire suddenly turned to Harper, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "So, Harper, you and my brother must have known each other for a while, huh?" Harper nearly dropped her paper cup of coffee. "Oh, not really. I'm just the new employee." Claire arched a brow, sneaking a glance at Alexander before smiling slyly. "Funny, because the way he looks at you doesn't feel very new employee at all." Harper flushed scarlet, ducking her head. Alexander said nothing, but the corner of his mouth curved ever so slightly. On the plane, Claire sat a row behind, busy tapping out messages. Harper took the window seat, Alexander beside her. Miami shrank beneath the clouds. Then his voice brushed against her ear. "You thought I had a girlfriend, didn't you?" She whipped around, eyes wide. You don't have to answer," he interrupted, voice low but strangely gentle. "Just remember this, if I ever did, I would never hide it." The words were simple, but they landed on her heart like cool water on a burn. Harper nodded softly, lips curving into the faintest smile. At last, the storm inside her chest began to settle. Outside the window, white clouds drifted lazily, and for the first time in days, Harper felt something sweet bloom quietly within her, fragile, warm, and deep. New York welcomed them back with biting cold. Harper pulled her coat tight as the icy wind tangled her hair. The city was as loud as ever, but for her, this return carried a new weight, relief, and a tremor of fear she couldn't quite name. A Reed Motors limousine whisked them into the city lights. Claire departed quickly for Boston, leaving Harper and Alexander alone. Neon spilled across his sharp features as the car glided down the avenue. Harper traced idle patterns in the condensation on the window. "Are you cold?" His voice cut through. She startled, turning just as he slipped off his thin knit sweater, handing it to her. "Wear this. I'm fine." Her protest faltered, betrayed by the faint tremor in her voice. His brows drew tight. "Don't pretend. I won't have my staff falling sick out of pride." Her fingers brushed his as she accepted the sweater warmth spread up her arm. She slipped it on, the faint scent of sandalwood and mint filling her senses, setting her heartbeat racing. A moment passed, then his voice dropped, low and steady. "Harper, today at the airport. The way you looked when Claire called me Big Brother. You misunderstood." Her throat tightened. She lowered her gaze, fingers knotted together. I'm sorry." Her voice was barely a whisper. He studied her for a long beat, then answered softly, "Don't apologize. Just trust me more next time." The city lights streamed past like falling stars. Harper felt something loosen inside her, something tender take root. For the first time, she felt she might have found a corner of peace. Even in his world of steel, maybe I can take one step closer. The next morning at Reed Motors, Harper walked through the glass doors with a heart that beat differently. Not heavy, not carefree, something in between. The showroom glowed with polished perfection, every car gleaming like a suit of armor. Staff bowed respectfully to Alexander, but when eyes flicked toward Harper, curiosity and whispers trailed in their wake. Rumors of her Miami trip had already spread. In the main conference room, the marketing team sat poised, numbers and charts scrawled across the whiteboard. Harper took her usual place at the end, ready to blend into the background. But as Alexander scanned the reports, he suddenly turned to her. "Harper, what ideas do you have for this campaign?" The room froze. Every head swiveled. Harper's pulse spiked. This was a $1 million project, not the place for doodles or jokes. I just thought. She fumbled, fingers twisting around her pen. Instead of stiff posters, maybe we could personify the cars, give them personalities, stories. Customers wouldn't just see a product, they'd see a companion. A few chuckles broke the silence. Childish, risky, but Alexander didn't laugh. He leaned back, gray eyes steady. "Go on," encouraged. Harper drew a breath, her voice growing brighter. "Imagine a car wearing a crown, a king of the road, another in a tuxedo, ready for the gala, or a cheeky one slurping ramen at 2 a. We could illustrate them, launch it on social media, fun, approachable, shareable. For a moment's silence, then a senior manager cleared his throat. With respect, that's far too risky. Reed Motors is built on luxury, not comic sketches. Harper flushed hot, ready to apologize, but Alexander's voice cut through firm, resonant. No, this is exactly what we need. The room stilled. Luxury doesn't have to be cold. The new generation wants connection. Harper just said aloud what I've been thinking, but no one dared suggest. He turned to her, eyes unwavering, filled with something that looked dangerously like trust. Harper, from today, you'll lead the creative visuals for this project. Her breath caught. Me, truly. Me. Yes, I trust you. Her heart surged, a warmth she could barely contain. Tears threatened, but she swallowed them, letting a quiet smile spread. For the first time in her life, someone saw her worth. A week later, the grand presentation filled Reed Motors' largest conference hall. Rows of directors, investors, and creatives. The tension so sharp, Harper thought her chest might crack. She stood at the center, clutching the clicker, remembering his words, I trust you. The first slide lit up, an Aston Martin, wearing a golden crown. Gasp! Then muffled laughter. Harper grinned, her voice playful. This isn't just a car. This is the king of the road, confident, proud, ruling every boulevard. Click, a sleek sports car in a tuxedo, martini in hand. Your perfect gentleman, never letting you walk into a party alone. The audience chuckled louder. Harper's eyes shone. Click. A car in sunglasses, hunched over a steaming bowl of ramen. And here's your midnight buddy, because everyone needs a friend who'll share noodles at 2 a. The room erupted. Laughter, applause, nods of approval. Harper's nerves melted into exhilaration. The final slide, her handwritten slogan, Reed Motors, not just a car, but your story on wheels. A beat of silence, then thunderous applause, laughter, cheers. Some even stood. But Harper's eyes went straight to the front row. Alexander, and he was smiling, not the tight, polite smile she'd seen before, but a real one, warm, proud. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, Harper gathered her papers, trembling with joy. Alexander approached, stopping just a step away, his voice low, uncharacteristically gentle. I told you, Harper, I trust you, and you proved me right. Her throat tightened. Thank you for giving me a chance. I never thought I deserved. Their eyes met, no words needed. In that moment, Reed Motors wasn't a billion-dollar empire. It was just a girl with trembling hands and a man who, for the first time, let the world see him smile because of her. Later, when the hall had emptied, Harper stayed behind, collecting scattered pens and papers. The door closed softly. Footsteps approached. Alexander, tie undone, shirt still sharp, but his face softer than she'd ever seen it. "You made them laugh," he said, voice steady, warm. Harper lowered her gaze, hiding her glowing smile. "I thought they'd laugh because it was silly." "No." He stepped closer, eyes never leaving her. "They laughed because you made them feel lighter." Reed Motors has been weighed down by numbers and contracts. You reminded us of something we'd forgotten: joy. Her breath hitched. That wasn't a compliment. It was truth. Deep, unshakable. "I only draw what I feel," she murmured. "Maybe I just learned to turn pain into humor." He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she felt his steady breath. His smoky gray gaze locked hers. "Harper," he said slowly, firmly, "you've changed this place, and you've changed me." Her heart stumbled. The world outside vanished, leaving only this quiet, glowing moment. She forced a laugh, looking down to ease the weight of it. "Then maybe you'll forgive that lucky scratch by now." His lips curved, half smile, half sigh. "That scratch may have been the best investment I've ever made." Her laugh rang soft, but tears pricked at her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt seen, truly seen. As he turned away, Harper pressed a hand to her chest, heart pounding with a rhythm she couldn't deny. "Perhaps, at last, I've been allowed to step into his world, and perhaps he into mine." Part 9. The artist who saved the deal. That morning, Reed Motors' showroom looked as if it had dressed itself for a grand performance. Marble floors gleamed, fresh white bouquets lined the space, and every car sparkled beneath the chandeliers like a jewel under stage lights. Yet beneath the beauty, the air was thick with tension. Alexander emerged from his private office, navy suit sculpted perfectly over his tall frame. His eyes swept the room, sharp and calculating, before settling on the staff lined up in place. "No mistakes today. Campbell is not a man who forgives them." His voice was low, cutting, a blade slicing through the hush. From the shadows, Harper clutched her sketchbook tight. Her heart drummed so hard she thought it might echo off the glass. Campbell. Everyone whispered his name. A real estate magnate, a man who could buy an entire fleet with one nod, or walk away forever at the slightest offense. At precisely 10, a black limousine rolled to the door. Out stepped a tall man, silver hair swept neatly back, leaning on an ebony cane, tipped in silver. His presence filled the room with a gravity that drew all warmth away. Alexander himself greeted him. "Mr. Campbell, welcome to Reed Motors. It's an honor." A curt nod. His cold gaze skimmed the showroom lights, carpets, staff. Every detail weighed and judged. The entourage trailed in silence. Harper pressed herself behind the glass wall, her pulse hammering. After nearly an hour, Campbell paused before a midnight blue Aston Martin DBS. He laid one heavy hand across its hood, eyes narrowing. "Beautiful, but not enough. I want something no one else can own. A mark that makes this car mine, and mine alone. If not..." His voice slowed, colder than marble. "I'll find it elsewhere." The room froze. A multi-million-dollar deal dangled on the edge of collapse. Harper's throat tightened. Then, recklessly, her hand lifted. "Mr. Campbell, what if I painted directly onto the hood? With a special artist's enamel, you would have something truly one of a kind. An art piece no one else could possess." Heads whipped toward her. Alexander's stare burned. "Did you just say that out loud?" But Campbell's eyes glinted with intrigue. "You paint?" "Yes." Harper's voice shook, but her resolve did not. "I promise I won't harm the base coat. It would still be your Aston Martin, but with your mark upon it, a silence heavy as stone." Then a rumble of laughter from Campbell, deep, surprising, interesting. "1 hour. Show me." The room erupted in whispers. Alexander strode toward Harper, pulling her aside, his voice low, furious. "Do you have any idea the risk you just placed on this company?" Her green eyes locked with his, fierce. "I know, but if we don't try, we lose him anyway. Trust me. Just this once." For a moment, steel clashed with fire. Finally, Alexander's jaw tightened. "Fine, but if you fail, you'll work for me until you're 80. Despite the sweat on her palms, Harper gave a trembling laugh. "Deal." She turned toward the gleaming hood, unpacking her worn kit of special paints, the ones she always carried, a habit from her street artist days. Every eye followed her. 1 hour, one chance, one gamble on everything. Harper dragged a low stool before the car. Under the flood of white lights, the midnight blue surface gleamed like a mirror. Her nervous face reflecting back at her. The staff circled, breath held. Campbell settled into a leather chair, cane across his knees, his gaze hawk-like. Even the ticking of the clock seemed deafening. Harper pried open a tin of cobalt paint. Her hands trembled. She whispered to herself, "This isn't just a car. This is the canvas of my future." A shadow loomed. Alexander bent close, his voice just for her. "Don't let your hand shake. If you stumble, I'll be there to pull you up." She lifted her eyes to his, and suddenly the terror ebbed, replaced by something strange, something steady. She nodded once. The brush touched metal. A line of blue appeared, sharp, deliberate. Her pulse thundered. Sweat gathered at her temples, but her hand grew steadier. One line, then another, shapes taking form. She's actually painting on $500,000 of car, someone whispered, but Harper tuned them out, stroke by stroke. A face emerged, Campbell's own stern eyes, strong jaw, the aura of command. Behind him, she sketched the tower that bore his name, symbol of his empire. 30 minutes gone. Her hoodie clung damp against her back. Strands of hair stuck to her skin. Still she painted, arm burning, heart steady. Each time she glanced up, Campbell's gaze was sharp, measuring. Behind her, Alexander stood like a sentinel, arms crossed, eyes fixed on her every move. Finally, the last stroke fell. Harper set down the brush, lungs heaving. The hood now bore a bold pop art portrait. Campbell himself, powerful and proud, his empire rising behind him. The silence was suffocating. Campbell rose, cane tapping slow, echoing across the marble like a drumbeat of doom. Step by heavy step, he approached. Harper's hands clenched white, head bowed. Alexander's shoulders were rigid, jaw locked. The magnate stopped before the hood. His old eyes scanned the work. Seconds dragged like hours. Then a sudden bark of laughter, booming like thunder. Marvelous. The girl has done what none of my own designers dared. Harper's head shot up, eyes wide. You truly like it. Like it. I love it. This is identity. This is mine. A car that is a declaration, not a toy. Read, draw up the contract. I'll buy it and ensure it remains the only one of its kind. Relief rippled through the room. Staff exhaled, some grinning openly. Alexander closed his eyes for a fleeting second, his frame loosening as though a mountain had lifted. Campbell turned, extending a firm hand. Mr. Reed, let's seal this deal. The pen scratched across the contract final. Irrevocable. Applause broke like a wave, filling the glass hall. Staff clapped, some even cheering softly, and all eyes turned to Harper, their awe unmistakable. She stood dazed, hands still flecked with paint, chest rising fast. She had saved it. She had saved everything. Alexander released Campbell's handshake, then strode toward her. Before everyone, his voice rang clear. Harper Lane, today you saved not just a contract, but the honor of Reed Motors. Her eyes widened, heat rushing to her cheeks. She clutched her sketchbook tight to stop her hands from shaking. He didn't stop there. And I have never been prouder of an employee in my life. The applause roared louder. Harper lifted a trembling hand to her mouth, tears blurring her vision. Never. From waiting tables, to delivering food, to odd jobs, just to survive, had she felt such recognition. Then, softly, for her alone, he leaned closer. I told you, you are the difference here. Her lips parted, her voice quivering. Thank you for believing in me for the first time. His smile was unguarded, real, proud, and warm. As Campbell's limousine pulled away, chatter still buzzed in the air. Harper slumped onto a stool in the corner, exhausted, hands stained, breath ragged. A tall shadow fell across her. She looked up Alexander, the navy suit impeccable, but his gaze softened, warmer than she'd ever seen. You lit up this place today, he said, voice low, steady. She managed a tired laugh, and nearly cost you millions if I'd messed up. He tilted his head, eyes sharp, yet gentle. But you didn't. You turned risk into triumph. That's why I can't see you as just another employee. Her heart stumbled. You mean? I'm different because of my silly sketches. Alexander leaned down, catching her gaze, every word measured. Not just your art, because of you. Harper Lane. The world hushed. No clatter, no voices, just the echo of those words filling her chest. She tried to mask the tremor in her smile with humor. If this is your way of adding to my scratch bill, it's a dangerous strategy. His lips curved, subtle, knowing that bill has become a sweet debt neither of us wants to pay off. Her breath caught, cheeks burning, heart galloping. In that moment, Harper realized this morning hadn't just saved a contract, it had opened a new door. One painted not in enamel, but in something far more lasting. Something that might just be the beginning of love. Part 10. The Confession and the Proposal. That night, the grand ballroom of a 5-star Manhattan hotel glittered like a cathedral of light. The high ceiling dripped with crystal chandeliers, casting brilliance across a sea of guests in gowns and tuxedos. At the center of the stage, hidden beneath a crimson silk cover, waited Reed Motors' newest creation ready for its unveiling. Harper sat among the audience, hands clasped tight in her lap. She wore a simple black dress, one Alexander had quietly nodded his approval at when he'd picked her up from her little apartment. Camera flashes popped in every direction, curious eyes flicking toward her, the stranger among the polished elite. Her heart pounded, caught between awe and unease. The MC's voice rang out, rich and commanding. Please welcome the CEO of Reed Motors, Mr. Alexander Reed. Alexander strode onto the stage, tall and commanding in his black tuxedo. His gaze swept the crowd, but in truth, his eyes were searching for only one person, Harper. He paused at the microphone, but instead of diving into the launch, his voice dropped lower. "Call me. Before I introduce this model, I want to tell a story." The ballroom hushed. Months ago, my beloved Aston Martin was scratched on Fifth Avenue. A ripple of laughter and murmurs spread. Harper froze. He was talking about her. The culprit was a girl clumsy, accidental, yet bold enough to cover the scratch with nail polish. And she was the first person in years to make me laugh. Laughter stirred across the hall. Harper's face burned, wishing she could vanish beneath her chair. But Alexander's eyes held hers, steady, unwavering. He motioned, and staff brought out a covered frame. When the cloth fell away, gasps filled the room. A painting Alexander himself had made. It showed Harper kneeling beside his car, nail polish in hand, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and determination. The ballroom erupted with laughter and applause, yet Alexander's voice softened, as if the words were meant for her alone. "If not for that scratch, I would never have met the woman who brought lightness and laughter back into my life. Harper Lane, I want everyone here to know you have changed me." The hall stilled. Harper's eyes blurred with tears, her hand pressed to her chest, her heart galloping as though trying to break free. Alexander stepped down from the stage, walking straight through the sea of guests. He stopped before her, extended his hand, his voice dropping to a tender rumble. "Harper, will you give me the chance to stand beside you, not just in the showroom, but for the rest of my life?" 1,000 eyes turned, breaths held. Harper trembled. In that spotlight, it felt like the world had narrowed to only him. The once distant man now offering her everything. Images rushed through her mind. The chaos of Fifth Avenue, the trembling nail polish, his rare first laugh, Miami's fragile distance, the lavender winds of second chances, all leading here. Her hand shook as she placed it into his. "If I say no, you'll send me the repair bill, won't you?" The ballroom erupted with laughter. The tension shattered into joy. Alexander's lips curved as he bent close, whispering warmly, "No. If you say no, I'll call it a lifelong debt and spend the rest of my days trying to make you change your mind." Through her tears, Harper laughed. She nodded, whispering, so only he could hear. Then, yes, applause exploded, waves of clapping and cheers rolling through the chandeliers. The MC laughed into the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, not just the launch of a car, but the birth of a love story." Alexander squeezed her hand, his proud gaze sweeping the room. before returning to her alone. For the first time, he wasn't hiding. Harper's vision blurred with tears, but her smile shone bright. She was no longer the nervous girl who once trembled. Before a scratch, she was part of Alexander Reed's story now. But this was only the beginning, for Alexander held a secret, yet a quieter surprise. Far from flashing cameras and champagne toasts, a proposal crafted in silence beneath lavender skies, beside the very lucky scratch that had changed their lives. Weeks later, Harper thought life would slip back into routine. She was wrong. Alexander had been waiting. One late autumn afternoon, he drove the very Aston Martin, the scratch still visible out of the city with her at his side. Fields stretched wide, lavender, blooming like oceans of purple under the fading sun. "Where are we going?" Harper asked, fingertips brushing the little scar on the car door. "Somewhere I've wanted to take you for a long time." When they arrived, Harper's breath caught. A hilltop blanketed in lavender swayed beneath the twilight. The sky glowed purple and gold. The air scented sweet. Alexander led her to the car, his fingers grazing the scratch. "Do you know why I never repainted this?" She shook her head. "Because it was the first mark you left on my life. Not mistake. Harper, a beginning." Her throat tightened. Her eyes shone. Then he reached into his pocket, drawing out a velvet box. Inside, a platinum ring sparkled, the diamond catching the lavender dusk. And then Alexander Reed, the man of steel and order, knelt on one knee. His voice rang low but unshakable. "Harper Lane, you scratched my car, but you marked my heart forever. Will you turn this lucky scratch into a lifetime promise? Will you marry me?" Harper's hands flew to her mouth, tears spilling as laughter bubbled through. "You're really proposing next to a scratch on your car." His gray eyes softened, unwavering. "So you'll remember, happiness often begins with what once looked like a flaw." She sobbed and laughed at once, nodding fiercely. "Yes, Alexander, yes." He slipped the ring onto her trembling hand, then rose, pulling her into his arms. Lavender winds swirled around them, hearts beating in rhythm, and in that moment, Harper knew the scratch would live forever, not as damage, but as a symbol of the love that had begun there. Winter came quickly, and on a crisp December afternoon, the lavender hill became the backdrop for a small wooden chapel dressed in white blossoms. Alexander, no longer the cold CEO, but a groom in classic black, stood waiting at the altar. The doors opened, music swelled, and Harper, radiant in satin, veil flowing like morning mist, stepped down the aisle. Every crystal on her gown shimmered like dew under winter light, and as Alexander's eyes locked on her, The entire world fell away. Alexander drew a slow breath, his chest tight with emotion, his lips pressed together, but his eyes shone with light. Harper walked forward, each step careful, her hands holding a small bouquet of lavender, her smile trembling, her eyes brimming with happiness. When she stopped before him, the old minister's voice filled the chapel. Today, we gather to witness the vows of Alexander Reed and Harper Lane, two souls from different worlds, brought together by what first seemed a careless scratch. Through her tears, Harper let out a small laugh. Alexander caught her hand in his, holding it firmly. I vow to keep every mark you leave on my life, whether a scratch on my car or the scars upon your heart. I'll treasure them all as proof of our love and our strength. Her voice shook, but rang clear. I vow not to erase your past, but to add new colors beside it, and I promise to keep that scratch, as I will keep you forever. Applause erupted. Many in the crowd brushed tears from their eyes. Just beyond the chapel lawn, the Aston Martin stood adorned with white flowers like a silent witness. Its lucky scratch still glimmered in the sunlight, a secret smile etched into metal. Alexander bent to kiss Harper, the sound of cheers rising like waves, and in that moment they became husband and wife, not just by vow, but by the beautiful, clumsy, impossible journey that had led them here. As the sun set, fairy lights twinkled across the lavender hillside, transforming it into a field of stars. Guests laughed and dined beneath arches of white and purple blossoms, string music weaving through the night. Wooden tables held crystal glasses of wine, cakes scented sweet, and the soft perfume of lavender drifted through the breeze. At the head table, Harper sat beside Alexander, still dazed by the stream of congratulations. Her hand rested in his, the platinum ring catching the candlelight. He leaned close, whispering at her ear, "Do you see it? Tonight, everything sparkles for us, but what I'm proudest of is still that little scratch." Through her tears, Harper laughed. She glanced toward the car, decorated in ribbons and blossoms. The tiny mark that had begun it all shone like a strange, perfect signature left by fate. When the celebration ended, guests stood, showering them with petals of lavender and white. As Alexander led Harper toward the waiting car, he opened the door, steadying her with that sure hand she had grown to trust. Cheers of "just married" rang behind them, while ribbons and tin cans clattered playfully as the car pulled away. Inside, Harper rested her head against his shoulder, her eyes bright with wonder. "You'll never have it repainted, will you?" "No," Alexander said, his voice warm. "Certain if I erased it, I'd erase the most important day of my life, the day I met you." Her smile glowed. She clasped his hand tighter. Outside, New York glittered in the night. But within the car, there was only the sound of their breathing, their hearts beating in rhythm. The Aston Martin, with its happy scratch, sped into the city lights, carrying the eternal promise of two souls who had once been strangers from different worlds, but had found each other and chosen to keep every flaw, every scar, as proof of their love. Harper closed her eyes, peace washing over her. She finally understood. Happiness isn't perfection. Happiness is choosing someone who will hold your scratches, your scars, and turn them into something whole. The car disappeared into the night. Two hearts, one promise, and a single lucky scratch shining forever. Message to the listener: sometimes happiness begins with a scratch that once looked like a mistake. If you've ever had a lucky scratch in your life, a mishap, a surprise, a twist of fate that changed everything, share it with us in the comments. And before you drift off, rate this story from 0 to 10. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss another tale from our CEO love stories, where every scratch, every twist of destiny holds the seed of a healing love